I'm Colin. He's Tim. We're here for your first early look at the Lecomte Stakes. A pretty good field of 8 in the Lecomte this year. Brad Cox comes in with 3. We're going to start adding on the right side there owners in the Game of Silks. As we go through the 3-year-old season, a lot of these horses were minted in last year, and now a lot of these owners have an opportunity to win some real money as these horses start to go through the Kentucky Derby Trail. And lastly, last time we had Nash versus Track Phantom. So we get a little bit of a maybe manufactured rivalry that I'm going to come up with here. So we got round 2 of Nash versus Track Phantom, probably 2 of the horses that we're going to expect to go off as your morning line favorites, or at least taking a lot of interest from the public. Here's what Steve Asmussen's had to say about Track Phantom after the Gunrunner Stakes.
That both of his 2-turn races have been victories. Good field today. I thought they went too fast in the middle. 46-4 here in a 2-turn race. Don't see it hold on very often. But he's a very good horse, and he has some room to physically develop. And
overview, if you want to look at some quick stats, victories at the distance, you have Track Phantom, who's got 2 wins. Highest earning goes to Can Group. Your early speed is going to come from Next Level and Track Phantom, very similar to what we saw in the Gunrunner. And of course, the highest lifetime fig, according to Brisnet, is Nash with a 97. Stick tuned. Tim and I are going to dive into the Lecomte Stakes. There you have it, Tim. A nice little quick overview of what we got for the 2024 Lecomte Stakes. And just for historical purposes, where's the Lecomte Stakes kind of ranked for you as far as turning in page to the new year and gearing up for the Kentucky Derby?
Really, for me, I think it really kicks off the major Kentucky Derby qualifiers. And this is the first of 6 that are 42-point qualifiers with 20 points going to the winner. But the Lecomte is a better race than a lot of people give it credit for. If you look at the history of this race, the last 2 years, the second place finisher in the Lecomte finished second in the Kentucky Derby, with Two Fields finishing second last year and Epicenter finishing second the year before that. And the year before that, even, you had the third place finisher, which was Mandaloun, who also crossed the wire in second, but as we all know, later placed first in that edition of the Kentucky Derby. So a lot of history with the Lecomte, good horses running in the Lecomte, and I think it is a genuine, valid Kentucky Derby prep that needs to be looked at, and the horses that win this race, and as I just mentioned, maybe the horses finishing underneath are serious contenders.
Yeah, it certainly has gained some steam over the last couple of years, as you just mentioned. Last year, we had Instant Coffee for Brad Cox, and we have a horse in this year's field who's taken almost literally the exact same path, and that is your 8 Awesome Road, who broke his maiden at Ellis Park, went on to run in the Breeders' Futurity, and then ran in the Kentucky Jockey Club. Instant Coffee had a lot more success in that Kentucky Jockey Club coming into the Lecomte, and then was able to come from off the pace to win the Lecomte. I think Instant Coffee probably going to be a little bit better of a horse than maybe what we'll see with Awesome Road. But let's start there. Is Awesome Road a horse that you're interested in? And we should also mention, we were talking about this just before we taped, that Awesome Road is cross-entered for Turfway on the same day. And with Alex Concepcion aboard there, he's usually a jockey running at Turfway. So what are your inclinations to think about Awesome Road? Do you think he goes here, or do you think he goes to Turfway?
I think he goes to Turfway. The only disappointment I had in this year's Lecomte was the entry of only 8 horses, and I really think we get 7. I think this horse, when you look at the fact that Brad Cox has 3 horses in this race, and one of those is obviously Nash. I look at the running styles, and sometimes you may see a trainer enter a horse if one is going to play off of another and maybe give another one a better opportunity. But I see Awesome Road being a speed horse, a horse that likes to be up front. Honestly, I think the horse is a sprinter, and I don't know that Cox wants to run him against Nash unless he's looking to put a little bit of additional pressure on Track Phantom up front. But if I had to wager on who's entering the gate, I'm saying Awesome Road's going to Turfway.
Let's start there with our conversation about pace for this race. And where do you mentioned Nash. I think what we saw in the Gunrunner is very similar to what we could see with a horse like Next Level, who went right to the front and really pressed Track Phantom in that gun runner, right? And Track Phantom has your E8 according to Brisnet. Nash has those higher early speed figures as well. But what was really impressive about Track Phantom was getting, as Steve Asmussen mentioned in the open there, getting pressed into some really hot paces on that backstretch and being able to really pull away in the stretch run of the gun runner. Do you see it sort of formulating that way?
I do. I think you know, it's interesting. You did your rivalry video up front and talked about the next edition of that rivalry between these two horses, and I think they're going to go at it very similarly in this race. So that's the way I see it. As you mentioned, I do think we have a horse or two in here. Next Level being one of those that might want to be up front. Tizzy Indy is another horse that has shown some early speed. Both of those are DeSormo horses in here, so you have to wonder what his intentions are with having two horses like that, and how he plans to run them, and the instructions he'll give to his jockeys. But I think it's Nash wanting the lead, and probably Track Phantom trying to sit just off of that pace, particularly if Nash is going to get pushed by one of these other horses.
From a Brisnet Prime Power number, I always like to use that spread of 10. So you got Nash at 139. You got 4 there on the top, Track Phantom, Awesome Road, who may not be in this race, right? And then you've got Can Group, and I've got them highlighted in green there on both left and right side, because this horse actually had some success over the turf, including a run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, finishing 4th. What do you think about Can Group coming back to the dirt here?
It's really interesting to me. I'm wondering what the thoughts are here, and why the horse is here, honestly, because I will tell you, I was at Keeneland for that race on 8 October in the Castle and Key Bourbon Stakes, and I will tell you that that horse Can Group came absolutely flying down the stretch. 12 horses in the race. The horse was 12th. He was way back there. He moved out somewhere around like the 3 to 5 path, then got pushed out even further and was just absolutely motoring down the stretch. This horse has some speed. If you look at some of those works, has some really impressive works, and many of those on the dirt. So I don't know if they're thinking that maybe based on some of the works in the morning and some things that they're seeing from the horse, that the horse can be competitive here. And I would not put it against him. I think Cassie places his horses pretty well. So I like Loveberry getting up board, and let's see what he can do in here.
Yeah, and the run on the dirt was against Timberlake, who's a horse we know of on this Derby trail, right? The one thing I think you could led interest to Can Group is the fact that the pace may set up nicely for this horse that, as you said, closed from the clowns both really on the dirt, but even those races at Ellis Park showed some closing kick a little bit in those 2 editions as well. So it could be a horse there that's coming from off the pace. All right, Tim, let's get into on where do you kind of lean towards who's going to be your pick here for the Lecomte?
You know, I think everything, if you're going to look at picks and the obvious picks, and you have to start with Nash and Track Phantom in here. And when I look at Track Phantom, one of the things that I really like is the horse has 4 races. He's got increasing speed figures in each of the 4 races. He's got the highest speed figure in the field for last race with an 89 Beyer speed figure. But if you look at his last 2 races, he's kind of plateaued a little bit. He was an 88th and followed that up with an 89. Nash, as we know, 2 races back when he broke his maiden, he absolutely crushed that field by 10 and a quarter lengths and threw a 97 speed figure. And you have to wonder, did that take a little bit out of him? And we often see a bounce after such a high speed figure. And so I like that 3rd race improvement, but I can see why the horse kind of went backwards a little bit. And I don't think it was a horrible race at all. And the fact that the horse finished 3rd in there, I watched that race several times, and I think Florent Giroux basically pulled him up a little bit at the end because he felt that the horse had nothing left to give, and I'm not sure that he really saw Snead coming like that. But I like that 3rd race improvement, but I can see why the horse kind of went backwards a little bit. And I think the fact that the horse finished 3rd in there, I watched that race several times, and I think Florent Giroux basically pulled him up a little bit at the end because he felt that the horse had nothing left to give, and I'm not sure that he really saw Snead coming like that. But It was really close. Could have been second, but I look honestly. I think Nash is going to put it in another big race here. Cox has 3 in the race, and obviously has the ability to potentially have 3. And but even if he has the 2 in here, I think he's can set the race up for himself. But his second horse is interesting to me, and I'll talk about him in a minute.
I am all about Track Phantom. This is a horse that I'm really intrigued by with, like you said, the 2 victories at the distance here. For all of you bettors out there, if you're going through multi-leg sequences, please pick one of them. Don't, you got to take a stand, right? And don't pick both just to be right. That's probably where you're going to land. If you're probably going to land on one of them. If you want to take one of them and then maybe there's another longer shot that you feel interesting in. But in my, not professional advice, is to take a stand, right, Tim? You got to pick one of them.
Absolutely.
And to me, to me, I'll take Track Phantom based on the fact that, like I said, that backstretch run, he was under pressure in that, and to be able to be pulling away down in the stretch there in the gun runner, there certainly could be some regression, right? To put up I go by Brisnet, a 93 and 94. He's
Right.
continued to improve, but there's going to be a top at some point, right? And it's either
Exactly.
steps forward again or he steps back, and then maybe you see him again in a couple of weeks and they freshen him up. I'm going to take a shot that he's better than this field here, and I'm going to go with Track Phantom on top. Where do you see some value?
I'm looking at a couple of horses, and I'll go to the second horse by Cox, Ethan Energy. And when I look at that horse, it's one of the least experienced horses in the field. He's only had a couple of races. In his first race, he went 6.5 furlongs at Keeneland. He was last of 11 horses there, and really, I don't see this horse as a sprinter. And I think that was kind of a tune-up. So they gave the horse a couple of months off, came back at 2 turns, a mile and a 16th. And won a decent race against a field. I still question how good that field is, but if you look at the horse that finished second in that race, El Magnifico, that horse has gone up against Muth a couple of times, finishing second to Muth in the debut, but it was by 8 lengths in a 5 furlong race, so that's probably not good. And then when they went up against each other in the American Pharaoh Grade 1. The El Magnifico was way back in that one, beaten eighth by 39 lengths. So I'm just not sure how good that field was, but I'll tell you what I do like about that race in Ethan Energy is look at the step up in speed figures, and that's huge. Went from from a buyer standpoint from 62 to 83. So that puts the horse competitive. I like, as I mentioned before, that the third race, I think a horse will typically step forward a little more in the third race. So I think this horse may have something. And obviously, Florent Giroux has ridden this horse for his first 2 races. He's going to stay with Nash, and that's understandable. But Ethan Energy gets Luis Saez, and to me, if anything, that might be a step up. I love Saez as a jockey and the way that that this horse runs. And when you looked at your way that the race was setting up, you have a lot of early pace in here, and then you've got Ethan Energy and Can Group as the couple of stalkers in there. So it may set up for them. So I think Ethan Energy has a decent shot in here. But I'm going with the other one. I'm going with Can Group. Can Group is my value
Okay.
play in here.
Wow.
And
That
I
was a
know it's 3
curveball.
races. It is.
The way you talked up Ethan Energy, I thought we were in the same spot. And it's just like, nope.
I do like the horse, but I'll tell you, I've seen this horse run, and like I tell you, in that Bourbon Stakes, the horse was absolutely flying, and then came back in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf and ran a really good race, and that was just a mile. So remember, that was a mile in the turf, and the horse was flying again and got 4th, beating only 2 lengths. So you add another 16th onto it, and I think that the horse can be, even though that's turf, I think that this horse can be flying at the end. And if the pace breaks down with all these horses going early, this is a horse that can get into the exacta, and I think is a must use in any trifecta wagers underneath.
Awesome. My value play is going to actually be Ethan Energy for a lot of the reasons that you just said. Basically, the fact that he's at least been proven around on the dirt at 1:16, right? So there's a little bit of a question mark with Can Group. I don't love playing horses coming back from Breeders' Cup races. I think they get tuned up for those races, and then they get overbet in their next time out, especially if they've won. He obviously didn't win and is changing surface, so the angle might not be as strong here. But I'm still going to assume that that was where they were really tuning up Can Group for. The other thing, one thing you didn't mention about Ethan Energy is that on that December 23rd race, that was a day when the track bias was all front end speed. And there was only 2 horses that closed that day. And Ethan Energy was actually one of them, who beat the other one that closed by a second better. So that win at Fairgrounds by 5 lengths, where he was 5th at the first call and 4th at the second call, only 2 lengths back though, is more impressive, I think, than maybe you just see as far as a victory. And as you said, 3rd time, obviously taking a big step up here. But if the pace gets hot up quick, up early, if the you get a horse that might be closing here, and I'll take my shot with the one that's got the experience over the dirt as opposed to the one in the turf.
Another interesting thing, and you're absolutely right. I failed to mention that, but didn't note that in my notes here. Another thing that I noted, Colin, was that Ethan Energy, if you watch the replay past the wire, he galloped out pretty well. So a lot of times he won that race pretty easily, and a lot of times you'll see a jockey ease up. They didn't ease up. He kept going through the wire and past the wire, and they galloped him out a little bit. So maybe they're prepping for something. Who knows?
They could be. That's our first early look at the Lecomte Stakes. We don't have morning lines yet. We taped this on Sunday night, but it's certainly, we are now into Derby season. You still got time to sign up for the TDF. That's the Tour de Force here on Trust the Profits. Check it out on our Twitter. You spend $50, and then you get a $100 mythical bet for every single prep race. It's perfect, Tim, for being able to have some skin in the game without spending a lot of money, but following Derby horses. And I find that the TDF gets you much more prepared once Derby week comes around. Don't you agree?
It's probably the most fun you can have after having a Silks horse who's in one of these races.
Yes. Let's go Locked. We'll be seeing him soon at Sam F. Davis at Tampa Bay. I have a little bit of a percentage of Locked on my Game of Silks stable. So certainly something we'll be talking a lot more about in the coming weeks. Until next time, I'm Colin. He's Tim. Please smash that like and subscribe button. It does so much to support the channel. And we'll see you Thursday live for the lounge at 6 o'clock.